The alien general took a human hostage. He got a brother instead. The red warning lights flashed across Mars Station as Lieutenant Kim Tae ran through the metal corridors. His boots made loud sounds on the floor as he hurried toward the evacuation pods. Behind him, he could hear the screams of people trying to escape. "Move faster," he shouted to the group of civilians following him. There were 12 people with him. 3 were children who looked scared. 2 were old people who could not. Run very fast. The rest were workers from the station. Tae was only 25 years old, but he was already a good engineer. He knew every part of Mars Station like it was his own home. Right now, that knowledge was the only thing keeping these people alive. Tattev alien ships had come out of nowhere. They were big and dark and shaped like giant insects. Nobody on Earth had ever seen anything like them before. The first meeting between humans and aliens was supposed to be peaceful. It was supposed to be historic and wonderful. Instead, it had become a nightmare. General Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the human station burn. He was tall even for a Korthak warrior. His skin was gray like stone and covered with scars from many battles. His forearms moved quickly as he gave orders to his soldiers. "Destroy their weapons first," he said in his deep voice. "Then we take prisoners. I want to see what these humans are really like." The Korthak had been fighting wars for 300 years. They had conquered 47 different worlds. Some species fought back hard, others gave up quickly, but all of them begged for mercy in the end. Vex expected humans to be no different. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Kex, walked up to him. Kex was younger and had only 2 scars on his face. "General, our scouts report that most humans are running away. They do not seem to fight very well." Vex nodded. This was normal. Most species ran when they first saw Korthak ships. "Good. Fear makes them easier to control. But find me some prisoners. I want to study their minds." Back on Mars Station, Tae reached the evacuation area. But his heart sank when he saw it. The evacuation pods were broken. Pieces of metal and glass covered the floor. Black smoke came from the damaged machines. "The pods are destroyed," said Dr. Parkji. She was the station doctor and had been helping Tae move the civilians. "We cannot leave this way." Tae looked around quickly. His mind worked fast to find another solution. There had to be another way out. There was always another way. "The cargo bay," he said suddenly. "There are emergency shuttles in the cargo bay. They are small, but they can carry all of us." The group started moving again. But as they turned the corner, Tae heard a new sound. It was different from the explosions and alarms. It was the sound of heavy footsteps. Alien footsteps. "Hide," Tae whispered to the others. "Get behind those containers and do not make any noise." The civilians quickly found places to hide. Tae stayed in the open hallway. He had his small engineer toolkit, but no real weapons. If the aliens found the group, he would try to lead them away from the hiding people. 3 Korthak soldiers came around the corner. They were huge creatures with thick armor and energy weapons. When they saw Tae, they stopped and pointed their guns at him. "Human," one of them said in broken English. "You come with us, no fighting." Tae raised his hands to show he had no weapons. "I will come with you. But please do not hurt the other people here. They are not soldiers." The lead Korthak soldier looked confused. Most prisoners tried to run or fight. This human was giving up to protect others. It was strange behavior. "You are prisoner now," the soldier said. "You come to our ship." As the aliens took him away, Tae looked back once. He hoped the civilians would stay hidden until help came. He hoped someone would rescue them, but he did not think anyone would rescue him. The Korthak ship was enormous inside. Tae walked through corridors that were much bigger than anything on Mars Station. The walls were dark metal and covered with strange symbols. The air smelled different too. It was thicker and had a bitter taste. They brought him to a large room where General Vex was waiting. Tae had never seen anything like the Korthak general before. Vex was almost 3 meters tall, and his forearms moved like he was ready to fight at any moment. "So this is a human," Vex said. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. You look weak. Your species will not last long against us. Tay looked up at the general without fear. He was scared inside, but he did not show it. We might look weak to you, but humans can be stronger than we appear. Vex laughed. It was not a happy sound. All species say that at first, then they learn the truth about Korthak power. The general walked in a circle around Tay. He studied the human like he was looking at a strange animal. What is your name, human? Lieutenant Kim Tay. I am an engineer. Engineer, Vex repeated. You build things. Good. You will help us understand. Human technology. If you do not help us, your people will suffer. Tay nodded slowly. I understand. But may I ask you something, General? This surprised Vex. Prisoners usually did not ask questions. They usually cried or begged or tried to attack him. What do you want to know? Why did you attack us? We were ready to talk peacefully. We wanted to learn about your people. Vex stopped walking. Peace, he said, like the word tasted bad. There is no peace in the galaxy. There are only the strong and the weak. The Korthak are strong. But surely your people must want peace sometimes, Tay said. War must be very hard for everyone. The general stared at the human for a long moment. No prisoner had ever asked him about what the Korthak wanted. They only begged for their own lives. Take him to the prison cell, Vex told his soldiers. Give him food and water. I want to talk to him more later. As the soldiers led Tay away, General Vex watched the human go. There was something different about this one. Something that made Vex curious instead of just angry. He told himself it did not matter. This human would break just like all the others. They always did. But deep inside, Vex wondered if this time might be different. The cell was small and dark. Tay sat on the metal bed and thought about what had happened. He was now a prisoner on an alien ship. His chances of ever seeing Earth again were very small, but he was still alive. And as long as he was alive, he could try to understand these aliens. Maybe he could even find a way to make peace between humans and Korthaks. It seemed impossible, but Tay had always believed that impossible things could happen if you tried hard enough. He would start by talking to the general again. There had been something in the alien's eyes when he asked about peace. Something that looked almost like sadness. Maybe General Vex was not as different from humans as he appeared to be. General Vex walked into the interrogation room 3 days after capturing the human. He expected to find Kim Tay broken and ready to beg. Most prisoners looked terrible after 3 days in Korthak cells. They usually had not eaten much and were afraid of what would happen next. But when Vex entered the room, Tay stood up and gave a small bow. The human looked tired, but his eyes were still clear and calm. Good morning, General, Tay said politely. Thank you for the food yesterday. It was different from human food, but not bad. Vex stopped walking. In 300 years of war, no prisoner had ever thanked him for anything. They cursed him or feared him or tried to attack him. But they never said thank you. Sit down, human, Vex said roughly. He activated a large screen on the wall. I want to show you something. The screen came to life with images of burning cities. Vex had recorded many of his victories over the years. The videos showed Korthak ships destroying buildings and Korthak soldiers marching through empty streets. This is what happens to species that fight us, Vex said. His voice was cold and hard. This planet had 5 billion people. They thought they could resist the Korthak Empire. Now only half of them are still alive. Tay watched the screen carefully. Vex expected to see fear or horror on the human's face. Instead, Tay looked sad. Those buildings were beautiful, Tay said quietly. The people who built them must have worked very hard. It is always sad when beautiful things are destroyed. Vex changed the video to show another conquered world. This one had tall crystal towers that sparkled in the light. The Korthak had broken most of them during the invasion. The Zilani people lived here, Vex said. They were artists and musicians. They made pretty things, but they were weak. Weakness gets you killed in this galaxy. Tay nodded slowly. Art takes time to create, but only moments to destroy. The Zilani must have spent generations building those crystal towers. How many of your soldiers did you lose taking this world, General? The question caught Vex off guard. What did you say? I asked about your soldiers. Wars always cost lives on both sides. How many Korthak warriors died conquering the Zilani? Vex stared at the human. Nobody ever asked about Korthak losses. 2,043 of my warriors died on that world. Why do you want to know? Because those warriors had families too, Tay said simply. They were someone's sons and daughters, someone's friends. Their deaths must have been hard for the people who loved them. For a moment, Vex could not speak. He remembered Commander Thek, who died in the first assault on the Crystal City. Thek had just become a father. His mate had sent Vex a message asking how Thek had died. Vex had never answered that message. You think about strange things, human, Vex said finally. My name is Tay. And I think about the same things you do, General. We both know that war hurts everyone, even the winners. Vex changed the video again. This time it showed a peaceful planet with green forests and blue oceans. Then it showed the same planet after the Korthak invasion. The forests were gone and the oceans were dark with pollution. The Corvin lived here, Vex said. They were farmers and healers. Very peaceful people. They surrendered without fighting. But we took their world anyway because we needed the resources. Tay watched the before and after images. It must have been a hard decision, to destroy something so beautiful even when the people did not fight you. It was not hard, Vex lied. It was necessary. Necessary things can still be hard, General. I have had to make difficult choices too. Being a leader means sometimes you have to do things that hurt your heart. Vex looked at the human sharply. What do you know about being a leader? You are just an engineer. I led evacuation teams during emergencies on Mars Station. Not as big as leading an army, but I still had to make choices that affected other people's lives. Sometimes I had to leave people behind to save others. Those choices still keep me awake at night. The general sat down across from Tay. You left people behind to die? During a reactor emergency 2 years ago, I had to seal off a section of the station. There were 3 engineers trapped inside. If I had not sealed it, the whole station would have exploded and killed 10,000 people. But those 3 engineers were my friends. What happened to them? They died. But they knew why I had to do it. Their last message to me was to tell their families they understood. Tay's voice was quiet. I still see their faces sometimes. Vex found himself leaning forward. How do you live with such choices? I remember that they died to save others. Their sacrifice had meaning, and I try to honor their memory by being the kind of person they would be proud to know. The general was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Show me more videos of your victories, you said. But these are not victories, are they? They are just more death and sadness. Vex stood up quickly. These are conquests. They show Korthak strength. They show Korthak pain, Tay said gently. Every world you destroy is another weight on your shoulders. How many worlds have you conquered, General? 47. And how many Korthak soldiers have died in those conquests? Vex was quiet for almost a minute. 130,412. You remember the exact number? A good general remembers his losses. A good person grieves for them too. You carry all those names inside you, do not you? All those warriors who died, following your orders. Vex turned away from the human. They died with honor. That is what matters. Honor is important, Tay agreed. But so is mourning the dead. On Earth, we have ceremonies to remember fallen soldiers. We tell stories about their lives, not just their deaths. Do the Korthak do that? We sing war songs about their battles. But do you remember what they were like when they were not fighting? Did Commander Thek like music? Did he have hobbies? What made him laugh? Vex spun around. How do you know about Thek? You mentioned him yesterday when you were talking about the crystal world. The way you said his name, I could tell he was important to you. The general stared at Tay. Thek collected small stones from every world we visited. He said each stone held the memory of a place. His collection filled 3 containers in his quarters. That sounds like someone who found beauty even in war. I bet his family would like to hear that story. Vex sat down heavily. His mate asked me to tell her about his last day. I never answered her message. It is not too late, General. She is. Still waiting to hear about the person she loved. Why do you care about Korthak families? We are your enemies. Because pain is pain, no matter what species feels it. And because enemies are just people we have not learned to understand yet. Vex looked at this strange human who spoke about enemy soldiers like they were friends. You are very different from other prisoners, Tay. Maybe other prisoners never had the chance to really talk to you. When people are afraid, they cannot see past their fear. But I am not afraid of you, General. You should be afraid. I could kill you right now. Yes, you could, but you will not. How do you know? Tay smiled for the first time since his capture. Because someone who remembers the exact number of soldiers he has lost, who keeps their names in his heart, is not someone who kills without reason. You are a warrior, General Vex, but you are also a person who feels deeply. Vex stood up and walked to the door. He stopped and looked back at Tay. Tomorrow I will show you more videos. You need to understand what happens to species that oppose us. I understand already, General. The question is not what happens to them. The question is what all this conquest has done to you. Vex left the room without answering, but as he walked back to his quarters, he found himself thinking about Commander Thek's stone collection and the message he had never sent to a grieving mate. For the first time in years, General Vex felt something he had almost forgotten how to feel. He felt tired of war. 2 weeks had passed since Tay's capture. General Vex found himself visiting the human cell more often than he planned. What started as interrogation sessions had become something else entirely, something Vex did not have a name for. Today, Vex brought a tray of food with him. The ship's cook had prepared something closer to what humans could eat. Vex told himself it was just to keep the prisoner healthy, but he knew that was not the whole truth. You brought me fresh fruit, Tay, said with surprise when he saw the tray. This looks like it came from your personal food stores, General. Vex set the tray down roughly. Do not read too much into it. I need you alive and healthy. Of course, Tay said, but his eyes showed he understood more than he was saying. Would you like to sit and eat with me? This is too much food for one person. I do not eat with prisoners, Vex said automatically, but he did not leave the room. Then do not think of me as a prisoner right now. Think of me as a guest who wants to learn about Korthak culture. Vex hesitated. Then he pulled up a chair and sat down across from Tay. What do you want to know? Tell me about your home world. What was it like before the wars started? Vex was quiet for a long time. Korthak Prime was green once. We had great cities with towers that reached toward the sky. The air was clean and our people lived in peace. What happened to change that? The bleeding sickness came from space. It arrived on a meteor that crashed into our largest city. Within 6 months, half our population was dead. The sick ones bled from their eyes and mouths. There was no cure. Tay stopped eating. I am sorry, General. That must have been terrible for your people. It was the end of our world as we knew it. The dead bodies poisoned the water. The cities became graveyards. We had to leave our homeworld or die with it. So you became nomads, traveling from world to world. We became survivors. We took what we needed to live. Other species called us invaders, but we were just trying not to die. Tay nodded slowly. Survival can make people do things they never thought they would do. But that was 300 years ago, right? Your people must have found new homes by now. Vex shifted in his chair. We have many worlds now, rich worlds with good resources. But you still keep conquering new ones. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Vex had asked himself the same thing many times over the years. Because that is what we do, he said finally. We are warriors. It is our nature. Or maybe because you are afraid to stop, Tay said gently. If you stop conquering, you have to face what all those years of war have cost you. Vex stood up quickly. You Know nothing about us. I know that you remember every soldier who died under your command. I know that you keep their names in your heart. That is not the behavior of someone who likes war, General. That is the behavior of someone who grieves for what war has taken from him. Vex walked to the small window that looked out into space. My people expect me to be strong, to lead them to victory after victory. What do you expect from yourself? I expect to do my duty, even when your duty makes you unhappy. Vex turned around. Happiness is not important. Only survival matters. Is that really living, though, just surviving from one day to the next? Before Vex could answer, the door opened, and Sub-Commander Kex entered. General, we are receiving a transmission from the Korthak High Command. They want to speak with you immediately. Vex nodded. I will be there shortly. He looked back at Tay. We will continue this conversation later. After Vex left, Tay sat alone in his cell and thought about what the general had told him. The Korthak were not evil conquerors. They were refugees who had been running from their own pain for 300 years. Their war machine had become their prison. The next day, Vex came back looking troubled. He sat down heavily in the chair, across from Tay. You look worried, General. Is everything all right? The High Command wants a full report on human military capabilities. They are planning a major assault on Earth. Tay felt cold fear in his stomach, but he kept his voice calm. And what will you tell them? The truth. That humans are weaker than us, but more clever than we expected. Is that really the truth, though? Vex looked at him sharply. What do you mean? I mean, what have you really learned about humans in these past weeks? What would you tell another Korthak general who asked you about our greatest strength? Vex was quiet for a long time. I would tell him that humans are hard to break, that they think about things in ways that surprise you. And is that a military weakness or strength? I am not sure anymore. Tay leaned forward. General, can I tell you something about human history? Something that might help you understand us better? Vex nodded. A long time ago, humans fought many wars just like the Korthak do now. We conquered weaker peoples and took their lands. We thought it made us strong. What changed? We realized that our real strength was not in taking things from others. It was in working together, in building things instead of destroying them, in making friends instead of enemies. That sounds weak. Does it? Look at Mars Station, where you captured me. It was built by 12 different human nations working together. People who used to be enemies became partners. They shared their knowledge and resources to build something amazing. Vex thought about this. But you still have wars on Earth. Yes, we do. We are not perfect. But we are trying to be better than we were. Each generation tries to make fewer mistakes than the one before. The Korthak do not change. We follow the old ways. The old ways worked when you were fighting to survive. But now you have survived. Now you can choose what comes next. Vex shook his head. The High Command would never accept such changes. They believe in Korthak superiority. What do you believe? General? Vex looked at this human who had somehow become the closest thing to a friend he had known in years. I believe I am tired of sending young warriors to die for causes I do not understand anymore. Then maybe it is time to find a new cause. Something worth living for, instead of dying for. Before Vex could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout. The ship. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. What is that? Tay asked. Vex stood up quickly. Emergency alert. Something is attacking the ship. Through the small window they could see bright flashes of light in the distance. Human ships had found them. My people have come for me, Tay said quietly. Vex looked at him with an expression Tay could not read. Yes, they have. The general started toward the door, then stopped. Tay, if something happens to me in this battle, I want you to know something. What is it, General? In all my years of war, you are the first enemy who made me remember why peace might be worth fighting for. With that, Vex left to join the battle. Tay sat alone in his cell, listening to the sounds of combat outside. He wondered if he would ever see his strange alien friend again, and he realized that somewhere along the way, he had stopped thinking of General Vex as his captor. Now he thought of him as someone who needed saving just as much as Tay did. The battle raged on, and both human and Korthak ships fought in the darkness of space. But inside a small prison cell, something more important than a battle had already been won. Two enemies had found a way to understand each other. Now they just had to survive long enough to see if that understanding could change the world. The battle lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, the Korthak fleet had won, but barely. 3 of their ships were destroyed and many more were damaged. The human rescue fleet had fought harder than any enemy Vex had ever faced. General Vex stood on his bridge looking at the wreckage floating in space. Human ships and Korthak ships drifted together in the darkness, their crews dead or dying. The victory felt hollow. General Sub-Commander Kex approached him carefully. "We have received new orders from High Command." Vex did not turn around. "What do they want now?" "They want you to execute the human prisoner. They say his death should be broadcast to all human worlds as a warning. They want to show what happens to those who attack Korthak forces." Vex felt something cold settle in his stomach. "When?" "Tomorrow morning, sir. They want it done publicly in front of all our crew members." Vex nodded slowly. "I understand. Prepare the execution chamber." Kex hesitated. "Sir, if I may ask, is something wrong? You seem troubled by these orders." "A good soldier follows orders without question, Sub-Commander. That is what makes us strong." "Yes, sir," Kex said, but he looked confused as he left the bridge. Vex remained alone, staring out at the debris field. Somewhere among those broken ships were the bodies of human soldiers who had come to rescue one captured engineer. They had died trying to save Tay, just as Korthak soldiers had died trying to stop them. All of it seemed pointless now. That night, Vex went to Tay's cell one last time. The human was sitting on his bed looking out the small window at the stars. He seemed calm, as if he already knew what was coming. "Hello, General," Tay said without turning around. "The battle is over?" "Yes. My forces won. I am sorry for your losses. I saw the explosions. Many of your people died today." Vex sat down in the chair he had come to think of as his own. 47 Korthak warriors died, including Commander Dex, who had served with me for 15 years. "Tell me about him." "Dex was a good soldier. He followed orders and never questioned authority. He died doing his duty." "But what was he like as a person? Did he have family?" Vex looked at Tay. Even now, facing his own death, the human was thinking about others. He had a young son. Dex always carried a picture of the boy with him. His son will grow up without a father because of today's battle. That is hard for any child. That is the price of war. Is it worth it, though? All these deaths for one prisoner? Vex was quiet for a long time. "The High Command has ordered your execution. It will happen tomorrow morning." Tay nodded calmly. "I thought it might come to this. Will you be the one to do it?" "Yes, those are my orders." "I understand. You have to follow your duty." Vex expected fear or anger or pleading. Instead, Tay just looked sad. "Are you not afraid to die?" Vex asked. "I am afraid. But I'm not angry at you for following your orders. You are a soldier, and soldiers have to do difficult things sometimes. Most prisoners beg for their lives. Would begging change anything? No. Then I would rather spend my last hours talking with a friend than crying about things I cannot change." Vex felt something break inside his chest. "Friend? Yes, is that wrong? I know you are my captor, but these past weeks talking with you has been the best part of being here. You listened to me and shared your stories. You treated me like a person, not just an enemy." Vex stood up and walked to the window. "I have never had a friend who was not Korthak. Friendship does not depend on what species you are. It depends on how you treat each other. The High Command would call that weakness. The High Command has never sat in a small room and really talked to someone from another world. They do not know what they are missing." Vex turned around. "Is there anything you want before tomorrow? Any last requests?" Tay thought for a moment. Could I have some materials to carve with? Nothing dangerous, just something to work with my hands. It helps me think. I will see what I can find. An hour. Later, Vex returned with some soft metal scraps and a small carving tool. Tay began working immediately, his hands moving with practiced skill. What are you making? Vex asked. A gift, for someone who has been kind to me. The High Command would not approve of you making gifts for your captor. The High Command is not here right now. Right now it is just two people talking in a small room. Vex watched Tay work through the night. The human's hands shaped the metal into the form of a Korthak warrior, but not a warrior in battle. This figure stood peacefully, looking up at the stars with hope in its posture. Why did you make it like that? Vex asked. Because this is how I see you, General. Not as a conqueror or an enemy, but as someone who dreams of better things. Someone who carries the weight of his people's pain and wants to find a way to put it down. Tay finished the carving as the ship's lights began to brighten for morning. He held it out to Vex. This is for you. To remember that even enemies can understand each other if they try. Vex took the small figure. It was warm from Tay's hands and surprisingly detailed. The carved warrior's face looked peaceful, almost hopeful. I cannot accept this. Please. It is important to me that you have it. Every person deserves to be remembered as more than just their worst moments. Even me. Vex closed his fingers around the carving. Tay, I want you to know something. If I had a choice, I would not do this. I know. And I want you to know something too. Whatever happens today, I forgive you. You are a good person trapped in a bad situation. That is not your fault. Guards came to escort Tay to the execution chamber. As they led him away, he looked back at Vex one last time. Take care of yourself, General, and maybe someday, find a way to take care of your people without destroying others. Vex stood alone in the empty cell, holding the small carving. In a few minutes, he would have to go to the execution chamber and kill the only friend he had, made in decades. He looked at the peaceful warrior figure in his hand. The carved face seemed to be asking him a question. What kind of warrior did he want to be? The kind who followed orders without thinking, or the kind who chose his own path? For the first time in his military career, General Vex began to question whether following orders was always the right thing to do. The execution chamber was full of Korthak soldiers. They had come to watch their general demonstrate the price of opposing their empire. Tay stood in the center of the room, calm and dignified, even with his hands bound. Vex entered carrying his ceremonial weapon. The room fell silent. This human attacked our forces, Vex announced. The penalty for such actions is death. He raised his weapon and looked at Tay. The human met his eyes without fear. Any last words? Vex asked. Yes, Tay said clearly. I want everyone here to know that General Vex is an honorable warrior who deserves better than a life of endless war. The Korthak people are not monsters. They are survivors who have forgotten how to stop surviving and start living. The Korthak. Soldiers looked confused. This was not how prisoners usually spoke before execution. Vex felt the weight of the carved figure in his pocket. He looked at Tay, who had somehow seen past his armor and weapons to the person underneath. The general raised his weapon higher, and then, for the first time in his life, he made a choice that had nothing to do with orders. He made a choice about what kind of person he wanted to be. General Vex stood in the execution chamber with his weapon raised high. Every Korthak soldier in the room watched him, waiting for the killing blow to fall. The silence stretched like a tight wire ready to snap. Vex looked at Tay one more time. The human's face was calm and peaceful. He showed no fear, only a quiet sadness for what was about to happen. Then Vex did something that shocked everyone in the room. He lowered his weapon. I cannot do this, he said clearly. This execution is wrong. The Korthak soldiers began to murmur, in confusion. Sub-Commander Keck stepped forward. General, what are you doing? The High Command ordered this execution. The High Command is not here, Vex said. I am. And I will not kill an innocent person to make a point about Korthak power. Innocent? Kex looked confused. He is an enemy prisoner. He is an engineer who was trying to save civilians. He has never killed a Korthak soldier. He has never attacked our people. The only thing he did wrong was care about others more than himself. Vex walked over and cut the ropes binding Tay's hands. I am setting him free. The soldiers in the room began talking loudly. Some sounded angry, others sounded confused. None of them had ever seen their general disobey direct orders before. Sir Keck said urgently, "If you do this, the High Command will call it treason. They will remove you from command, they might even execute you." Vex nodded. "I know, but some things are more important than following orders. Some things are more important than my career or even my life." He looked at Tay. "You asked me what I believe in. I believe in doing what is right, even when it is hard, even when it costs me everything." Tay rubbed his wrists where the ropes had been. "General, you do not have to do this for me. I understood why you had to follow orders. I am not doing this just for you," Vex said. "I am doing this for me, for my people, for all the Korthak warriors who died fighting wars they did not understand. I am tired of being the kind of leader who only knows how to destroy things." The door to the execution chamber opened and more Korthak soldiers entered. They had heard about what was happening and came to see for themselves. General Vex, one of them, called out, "What are your orders? Should we secure the prisoner?" Vex looked around the room at his soldiers. These were warriors who had followed him through dozens of battles. They trusted him to lead them. Now he had to decide what kind of leader he really wanted to be. "My orders are simple," Vex said loudly so everyone could hear. "We are going to take this human back to his people. We are going to open talks for peace instead of war." The room erupted in voices. Some soldiers sounded excited. Others sounded worried. A few sounded angry. "Peace with humans?" One soldier shouted. "They attacked our ships. They killed our warriors. They attacked us because we invaded their space and took their people prisoner," Vex replied. "If Korthak ships appeared in our space and captured our citizens, would we not fight back?" The soldier was quiet. Other Korthaks nodded slowly. But General Keck said, "The High Command will never accept peace talks with humans. They want total victory." "Then maybe it is time for new leadership in the High Command," Vex said. "Leadership that thinks about what is best for our people instead of just following old ways that do not work anymore." Tay stepped forward. "General, if you are serious about peace talks, I have an idea, but it will be dangerous for both of us." "What do you suggest?" "Come with me to human space, meet with our leaders yourself. Show them that not all Korthaks want war. Help us build trust between our peoples." "You want me to go to Earth?" "Not Earth. Mars Station, where you captured me. The station commander is Captain Li Min. He is a fair person who believes in giving others a chance. If anyone will listen to peace talks, it will be him." Vex thought about this. Going to human space would be incredibly risky. If the peace talks failed, he would be trapped among enemies. If they succeeded, he would be branded a traitor by his own people. "Why would you risk this?" Vex asked. "You could just take your freedom and go home safely." "Because you risked everything to save my life. Because I believe you really want peace. And because someone has to take the first step toward ending this war." Vex looked around the room at his soldiers. "I cannot ask all of you to follow me in this. Any warrior who wants to return to the main fleet can do so. I will not think less of you for choosing duty over friendship." Most of the soldiers stayed, but a few left the room. Vex understood their choice. He was asking them to abandon everything. They had been taught about strength and victory. Sub-Commander Kex remained at his side. "Where you go, I follow, General. Even if it leads us both to disgrace." "It might lead us to something better than disgrace," Vex said. "It might lead us to honor." 3 days later, Vex's ship approached Mars Station under a flag of truce. The human defense fleet surrounded them but did not attack. Captain Li Min had agreed to meet with them. Tay stood beside Vex on the bridge as they prepared to dock with the station. "Are you nervous, General?" "Terrified," Vex admitted. "I have spent my whole life learning how to fight. I do not know how to make peace." "Peace is not something you make," Tay said. It is something you choose, and you already chose it when you decided not to kill me. The docking procedure was tense. Human and Korthak security forces watched each other carefully, but no shots were fired. That was progress. Captain Lee Min met them in the station's main conference room. He was older than Tay and had the tired eyes of someone who had seen too much war. "Lieutenant Kim speaks highly of you, General Vex," Lee Min said. "He says you treated him with respect and kindness." "Lieutenant Kim taught me that enemies can become friends if they take time to understand each other," Vex replied. "And what do you want from us now?" "I want to end the war between our peoples. I want to find a way for Korthaks and humans to coexist without bloodshed." Lee Min studied the alien general carefully. "What about your high command? What about the rest of your fleet?" "I cannot speak for all Korthaks," Vex said honestly, "but I can speak for the warriors who follow me. We are tired of fighting wars that solve nothing. We want to try something different." The negotiations took weeks. There were arguments and misunderstandings. There were moments when both sides almost gave up. But Tay and Vex worked together, translating not just words, but ideas between their peoples. Slowly, carefully, they built the foundation for peace. The agreement was simple. Vex would return to Korthak space and try to convince other generals to consider peace talks. In return, humans would provide medical supplies to help Korthak, colonies that were still suffering from old diseases. It was not a perfect solution. It was not even a complete solution, but it was a beginning. On the day Vex prepared to leave Mars Station, Tay came to see him off. "I have something for you," Tay said. He handed Vex a small communication device. "This will let us stay in contact. If you need help or advice, just call." Vex took the device carefully. "Thank you, my friend. Thank you for showing me that even the fiercest warriors can choose compassion over conquest." As Vex's ship departed Mars Station, he looked back at the place where everything had changed. He had come here as a conqueror seeking to break human resistance. Instead, he had found something he never expected to find. He had found a brother. The war between humans and Korthaks did not end overnight. There were still battles and conflicts. Many on both sides opposed the peace talks. But slowly, more voices began calling for understanding instead of violence. General Vex never became the supreme leader of the Korthak Empire. But he became something more important. He became the leader of Korthaks who believed in a better future, and Lieutenant Kim Tay never returned to his old job as an engineer. Instead, he became Earth's first ambassador to the Korthak people, working alongside his alien friend to build bridges between their worlds. In the end, the alien general had taken a human hostage to demonstrate Korthak power, but what he got instead was something far more powerful than any weapon or threat. He got a brother who taught him that the greatest strength is not the ability to destroy your enemies. It is the ability to turn your enemies into friends.